All right. Oh, I see the participants number is steadily going up. We will get started in a moment and just give people a second to get in and get settled. I love watching the number tick up. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Danielle Mitchell Damron. I'm the Director of Special Projects for the Dean of Students, and I oversee family and family programs at Emory University. Today, we are going to be focusing on housing, on-campus housing specifically. The amazing Nikki Laird with us today. She's going to introduce herself in a moment. We know housing is something that's very important to students and their families. And so we're going to have sort of a deep dive today on the selection process, as students will be starting that process relatively soon. Just a quick reminder that if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A section in the webinar. You can find that in the option bar below with the question mark. And I will compile the questions as they come in, and I will ask Nikki those questions after her presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki to introduce herself and talk to us about housing selection.
Hi, everybody. As Danielle said, I am Nikki Laird. I am the Director of Housing, Occupancy, and Assignments. So I am the person who is charged with making sure that all of our students have a place to live if they want to live on campus or if they're required to live on campus. And we'll talk about the difference in that in just a few minutes. All right. So our agenda today, we'll start off by talking about the second year housing process, since second years will be new to the housing selection process, and then an overview of the third and fourth year housing process and how it's a little bit different. We'll talk about our theme fraternity and sorority housing that's also available, and then have plenty of time for question and answer. So for our second year students, again, Emory requires all second year students to live on campus, and we also guarantee housing to all second year students. The housing application is open now. Students can access that via their My Housing portal. That when they were first year students, they went into that portal to apply for housing, and it's exactly the same for second years to start that application process. The priority deadline for second year students is Wednesday, April 2nd, and we'll talk about why that's important in just a second. And they must complete the application and match with their desired roommates by that date. The reason that priority deadline is there April 2nd is because on Friday, April 4th, students will receive their selection times via the My Housing portal. So as first years, we had them apply, give us their preferences, tell us who their roommate was, and then we, our staff, place them in their rooms. But as second years, they have the opportunity to actually go in and select the exact room that they want. It is done by lottery, and it is done by random lottery. So they will receive a random selection time on Friday, April 4th. It'll be on their My Housing portal. We'll also send them an email to remind them that it's available for them at that time. Their times will be on Tuesday, April 8th and Wednesday, April 9th. That's when they will actually go in and select their rooms via the My Housing portal. And that time period will be in the evening between 4 and 7 p.m. During that time, we'll also have a live help session via Zoom that they can log into if they have any questions. We start that about 3 p.m. on the days of selection and run it until about 8 p.m. And then second year students, as a reminder, are eligible to live in Harris, Woodruff, Clifton Tower, Few, Evans, our theme houses, and our fraternity and sorority houses. We also have block housing that is available for second year students. So if they have a group of 10 people, a minimum of 10 people, they can get a block in Harris Hall. So they just need to let us know at housing.emory.edu that they're interested in that option. They can send us their group. We'll have them do a little bit of extra paperwork so they confirm that they are interested in that option. So they can have a group of 20 friends and take over half a hallway in Harris if that's what they would like to do. And then minimum of 12 people in Clifton and Woodruff for the same thing. So if they do that, they don't have to worry about picking a room on April 8th and 9th. They already have their spot in Harris or Woodruff or Clifton. We have a very robust second year housing selection guide that goes into detail about how they will pick their rooms. And that is linked here. We also are doing RA programs. We are doing open houses to look at the different buildings. And we are going to do some virtual sessions as well. So they will have plenty of opportunities to see this information and even more in-depth information about how to select their rooms here on campus. And so please have them be on the lookout for that. We'll be sharing that information via email as we get closer to these April 8th and 9th dates. So for third year and fourth year housing, we do not require third and fourth year students to live on campus, and it's also not guaranteed. Although we do have quite a few spots for third and fourth year students, we have about 45 to 50% of the third and fourth year students are able to live on campus at our Claremont campus. For students who already live at Claremont, so going back to that, again, the housing application for those students is open now. The priority deadline for third and fourth year students is Wednesday, February 26th, so a little bit earlier than for our second year students. And again, they must complete the application and match with their roommates by that date. Same room selection. So if they currently live at Claremont right now and they like their apartment, they can stay right there. That is going on now until Friday, February 21st. If they still want to live at Claremont, but they want to take a chance and try to get a different building or a different apartment, they can do that, and they will receive a selection time via the My Housing portal on February 28th. So similar to the second year process, the priority deadline is on Wednesday. They'll receive their time on Friday, and then they will have their selection the following week on Tuesday, March 4th and Thursday, March 6th. We're taking a break on Wednesday for Ash Wednesday for any students who are observing. So it's a little bit different. It's Tuesday and Thursday. For the third and fourth year students. And again, students will go into the My Housing portal. They will select their room that they want, and they'll be able to pull in roommates and all of that stuff within the portal. So for students who participated in this in the second year, it's exactly the same portal. It is exactly the same process. It is just a little bit more complex because we do have a wider variety of options for them, as opposed to with the second years where we have basically double rooms, suites, and singles. With the third and fourth year housing, we have 2-person, 1-bedroom apartments, 1-person, 1-bedroom apartments, 4-person, 4-bedroom apartments, 4-person, 2-bedroom apartments. There's a wide variety. So the students really should get on to our website, take a look at all the different options, or participate in an RA program, or ask questions in advance so they have a good understanding of what they're really interested in, so they can see if that's available when they log in. So, and as a reminder, 3rd and 4th year students are eligible to live in Claremont Tower, Claremont Residential Center, which is affectionately known as the CRC, Undergraduate Residential Center, affectionately known as the URC. And they're also allowed to live in our theme houses, fraternity and sorority houses, if there's room. The 3rd and 4th year housing selection guide, again, goes in depth into all of this, how to select the rooms, and all of those things. And that's available on our website, housing.emory.edu. Now on to our theme, fraternity and sorority housing. So students who have joined a fraternity or sorority may live in their organization's house or lodge. Every organization is a little bit different in how they decide who gets to live in the house. Some have way more members than they have spaces for. Some have way more spaces than they have members. So your student, if they're a member of fraternity or sorority and interested in living in the house or lodge, need to be in touch with their chapter's president or housing manager. And this process will take place right after spring break. So they should be aware that that's about the time that they'll be getting housing assignments if they want to live in a fraternity or sorority. Our theme houses, again, they're open to our sophomores and 3rd and 4th year students if there's room. We have Bait, which is our Jewish lifestyle house. It is on Peavine Creek Road. It is a beautiful mid-century house with a great community of students who are committed to the Jewish lifestyle and the Jewish community as a cultural piece is not necessarily focused on the religion itself, but the cultural pieces of being Jewish. Our Black Student Alliance House, and which welcomes allies, is on Eagle Road and houses about 40 students. CASA is our Portuguese and Spanish immersion program, and we are partnered with the Portuguese and Spanish department to help select students for that organization. And they speak Spanish and Portuguese only in the house. And then House 20 is our purposeful living community. House 20 is in a bit of transition this year. It has previously been known as MLOW, or the Media, Literature, Arts, and Outreach community. That community is being sunset. Students who are currently in that community will be remaining, and we'll be starting a new purposeful living community that we don't expect to fill the entire house. So we also may have some opportunity for students who are neither in the MLOC community and the purposeful living community to live in the house as well. So House 20 is right on Eagle Row. It's a great location for some students. It may be an option for your student, even if they're not interested in the purposeful living community. So they can reach out and ask us about that a little bit closer to the time for sophomore housing, if that's an interest for them. So helpful tips for you as a parent supporting your student going through this process. Help your student keep an open mind about where they want to live. So there's a lot of lore about who lives where and where the majority of 2nd year students or the majority of 3rd and 4th year students live. And, you know, so for example, a lot of students believe that almost all sophomores live in Few and Evans, but it's only about 300 bed spaces, and we have about 1,400 2nd year students. So they are living in all of these areas that I mentioned before, and almost 500 of them live at Woodruff and Clifton. So that's a great concentration of second year students for them to be near their peers. Remind them to make sure they read the housing agreement before signing. So the housing agreement is a part of the housing application, and they are signing up for a year of housing, especially there for the third and fourth year students who aren't required to live on campus. We want to make sure they read that thoroughly so they're aware of what they're committing to before they sign it. Encourage them to have open conversations with potential roommates and suite mates. Things may change. They may log in and not be able to get that perfect housing assignment that they thought they were going to be able to get. So all members involved ought to have a good conversation about, like, what happens if we log in and there's no more spaces for 4 people? Can we, who's going to split with who? Like, are we going to be 2 here and 2 here? Who's going to go in which group? Make sure that they have scheduled an accommodations meeting if needed. If they have a disability accommodation, they should meet with me or my colleague Josh to talk about their needs and make sure that they are getting what they need in their assignment. And then stay calm, be flexible, and ask questions in advance. So a lot of times during the actual selection process, students get really anxious. And please note, again, number 6, remember that all second year students are guaranteed housing. So sometimes at the very end of sophomore selection, we run out of spaces that are available to be selected on the portal. In fact, it happens almost every year. And it's okay. They're going to get housing. We are going to make sure that we find a place for them to live. So there are, again, there are fraternities and sororities who aren't able to fill their spaces, and they invite other people to be a part of their space. And that opens up space in another building for your student. Or there are lots of students who are planning to go abroad. They don't have their visas and everything taken care of yet. So they pick a room, and then when they tell us they're going abroad, that space becomes available for your student. So if they don't have a selection, if they don't have housing at the end of the selection period, don't freak out. We will find them a place to live. They can also add them, if they don't like what they picked, they can also add themselves to a wait list for a different type of housing. So nothing is completely set at the end of the selection in April. We continue to work with students throughout the summer to make sure that they have housing that meets their needs. So now it's time for questions.
Thanks, Nikki. That was a lot of information. It seems like you guys really have worked out this process and got it down to a science. So we have a few questions. One from, it looks like a student. So the question says, if I'm a student in interim housing attempting to transfer out of it for next year, is matching with a specific roommate required for transferring into a regular dorm room, or will it improve the chances of transferring out?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean by interim housing, but I will say this. So when you create a roommate group, each member of the roommate group gets their own time slot. So if you have a group of 2 people, you're going to get 2 time slots, and each one of you will get your own time slot. Whoever has the first time slot can select the room from both of you. If you have a group of 4 because you want to go into a suite, then you have 4 chances to get a better time slot. And the person who has the highest time slot can go in and place all 4 of you in a suite. So I won't say it's necessarily helpful or even required for you to go through the process as with a roommate. We certainly have plenty of students who go through the process without a roommate. I will mention that on the first night of housing selection, we do have what we call must fill as an option. So if there's a 4-person space, you need 4 people to go into it. If it's a 2-person space, you need 2 people to go into it. On the second night, It opens up to, you can put two people in a 4-person space, three people in a 4-person space, one person in a 2-person space. But that gives us the opportunity for those match groups, people, large groups that definitely want to live together, to get those spaces together, and folks who are on their own and don't really care who their roommate is, they can, pick those spots that are left behind after that.
Thanks, Nikki. We have a question. I know that you just briefly talked about accommodations and students either speaking with you or your colleague Josh. The question we have right now is if a student received accommodations for their first year, the example given is a bathroom in his room, will he have the same accommodation for the second year, or does he have to resubmit for that accommodation?
So that most of the accommodations that students receive do carry through all 4 years. Your student will want to check. They will know, they should know or have that available on their portal with DAS, whether it's a temporary accommodation or it's a permanent accommodation. So if it's a permanent accommodation, they don't need to go back to DAS. They do need to sign up for an appointment with me or my colleague Josh. That information is actually on their My Housing portal right now. It says sign up for a meeting about your accommodation. If you're a current first year rising second year, you can view the link, but you can't sign up yet. That will open up next week. And then if you're a current third or fourth year, those meetings are starting next week, so you can sign up now for those appointments. But you don't need to go back to DAS unless um, you do have a temporary accommodation or you feel like the accommodation that you currently have is not working for you. But in those meetings, we'll talk about, every year the what the housing accommodations that are available are a little bit different. So, in the first year area, we don't have a ton of suite rooms. We don't have a ton of attached bathrooms. Um, but we do have a lot of those in the second year area. Woodruff and Clifton, in particular, have that availability. And so, depending on your accommodation, um, you may not, you may really not need that accommodation. It's even more explicit when you move to the third and fourth year, right? So a lot of students, I need a private bedroom and a private bathroom. Almost everybody that lives in CRC and URC is going to get that, whether they have an accommodation or not, because that's how the apartments are set up. It's very different. So we'll walk you through, hey, here are the options. Here's what we have as your accommodation. Here's what that qualifies you for as a second year. Here's what that qualifies you for as a third or fourth year. What are your preferences? And then, um, we'll determine whether we're going to make a placement or the accommodation is so common that it's no longer necessary for us to place you.
Thanks, Nikki. Um, Can you talk a little bit about the possibility of triple dorm rooms for incoming students, rising first year students? So I'm not sure if the question is for a student who is incoming from high school or if the question is or a first year student who will be rising to sophomore. But in any event, can you sort of speak to the information that's available around that?
Sure. We don't have very many triple spaces for um, students who are going to be in their second, third, and fourth years. We do have a very small handful of 3-bedroom apartments in CRC. Um, those tend to be taken by folks who have same room selection. So again, we have a very small number. We have 30 total beds in 3-bedroom apartments at CRC. And last year we opened selection with 6 of those available because they're so popular with the folks who live there. They tend to keep them from year to year. Um, I we don't really have any triples in the second year area at all. We do have triples in the first year area. So if you're a current high school student coming in, we do have the option for triples. We have them in Alabama Hall, Raoul Hall, a couple of other buildings, we do have triples depending on how many incoming freshmen. So we have some rooms that are always triples in Alabama Hall, for example. Those rooms are almost always triples, a small number of them. I would say we have about 27 beds that are triples all the time. And then we have about probably another 30 more that we can convert to triples if we have a whole lot of freshmen coming in.
Thanks, Nikki. So the next question is, if a rising sophomore has a is mutually paired with a roommate, does each of them get a date and time to register, or is the time assigned to the pair together? It sounds like it's the former.
Yes, they each get their own time, but whoever has the earliest can make the selections for both.
And so the person who has the second time, do they need to go in at all?
They do not. They
Okay,
will, they will, actually, they will need to accept their room.
okay,
But they don't, but it doesn't have to be done by the time their time slot comes up. They have time to do that after the
okay.
fact.
Um, can you repeat the minimum number of people for group housing assignments for each location?
Sure. So for Harris Hall, it's a minimum of 10. And for Woodruff and Clifton, it's a minimum of 12. So it would be,
That's a
um,
tight-knit group. That's a
yeah,
large, tight-knit
it
group.
is a large tight-knit group. We have them though. We have, so it would be essentially five double rooms at Harris in a row, which would be about half of one side of a hallway. And at Clifton and well, at Clifton, our suites are 6-person suites, so it'd be 2 suites next to each other in Clifton, or 3 suites next to each other in Woodruff.
Thank you. Um, sorry, the questions are jumping a little bit here. Oh, the back to the interim question. So the student, I think, followed up with additional information. By interim housing, I mean got transferred into a converted study room, triple dorm. I'm an Oxford student.
Oh, so I can't really answer that question
So that's
if
it
you're
sounds like it's an
staying at
Oxford,
Oxford.
it's an Oxford question. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
two separate uh residence or life or housing offices. Can an incoming first year student request their own bathroom? It sounds like you can request, I mean, you can pretty much request anything you like, but it's it's basically dependent on what is freed up.
yes, that's correct. So I would say, if you need a single room with an attached restroom, that is a very small percentage of our housing options. And most of those go to students who have accommodations for disabilities. If you want to live in a suite, you know, you have a roommate and there would be 2 other roommates sharing that bathroom. Some students have accommodations for that, but plenty of students get that option through the request process.
If a third year student does not have a roommate to match with, can they still go through the room selection as a single person on March 4th and 6th?
Absolutely, you can. If you're looking for a roommate, we're working with the RAs right now to do some roommate matching mixers. And we'll be sending that information out. They have until today to request us to come and do that program for them. So we'll be sending that information out next week once we've scheduled all those with the RAs. And but if you just want to go it on your own, you certainly can.
Great, thank you. If a student is interested in sorority housing, do they find out in advance of the 4/8/4/9 selection dates if they have a room in one of the Greek life housing units? And if they do they just not participate in the selection dates on 4/8/4/9? And what happens if they don't get a spot in sorority housing?
Yes. So as I mentioned, some chapters have plenty of room for all of their members, and some chapters are very large and do not have as much room. So they determine who is eligible. Sometimes they do their own internal lottery if they have too many people for spaces. Um, so if you do get a room in your sorority lodge, that you would definitely find that out before the 8th and the 9th, and you would not need to participate in the lottery at all. In fact, you won't get a selection time if your sorority has already placed you, because they will place you before that date. If you are still maybe waiting to get in, like some of the sororities maintain their own wait list, then you may get in after that date. So you may select a room again. As I talked about, we have those rooms that come open after the fact, after the lottery is done. So you may, get off the wait list, be contacted by your sorority, move into that space, and then we would have the remaining space to give away to a student who's still on the wait list.
Thank you. Is there any chance as a second year student of getting a single room?
Yes, there is a chance. It is low.
It's a non-zero chance.
It's a non-zero chance. So I will say we do, and this is something that we are talking about as a department. We are trying to determine how we can create some more single spaces for the sophomore experience. I will say there are more singles available in the freshman area than in the sophomore area. So if you have a single right now, it does not guarantee you will get a single as a sophomore. Um, so there is that. Then again, third and fourth year, tons of singles with private bathrooms. So hang with us. Um, you know, it's a non-zero chance, but they do go very, very quickly at the beginning of the selection process.
Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah.
Will tours be offered for third and fourth year housing options?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we just set those dates for the end of February, and we'll be advertising that to our current second, third, and fourth year students to go to the open house at Claremont, and we'll be able to show off a variety of different apartment styles in URC, CRC, and Claremont Tower.
Thanks. There's another question that just came in. It looks like it's coming from the parent of a sophomore advisor. A sophomore advisor who's applying to be an RA going forward in their third year. And can you say when the RA decisions are made? I know the interview should have happened by now because I have participated in the round robin in the past. If they are not selected, are they prioritized in any way to get housing because they're sort of trying fixed in the process of finding out if they got this role and deciding? And so how does that work?
So, for the RA process, my understanding is that everyone should have either received an offer, or a wait list, or no, you're not hired, at
If
this
you're
point.
waitlisted, what should you do?
If you're waitlisted, so if you were hired, then you are going to get the spot that you are assigned to, and you'll be notified of that by your complex director that hired you. If you are waitlisted, you should have gotten an email, or will get it. Maybe it will go out today. There's a possibility that it goes out today. I was involved in proofing the email. We'll say that. And it says, basically, since you're a third and fourth year student, you're not required to live on campus. You don't have to apply for housing. You should let us know if you want to remain on the wait list, or if you don't. If you apply for housing on campus and get hired as an RA, it's no big deal. You just get transferred over to your new RA room. As opposed to, like, if you search for housing off campus, you may be pulling yourself out of the RA pool because you may be signing yourself into a lease that would not allow you to make that move.
The next question is, there's just a clarification. A parent was asking about an incoming first year student who got an invitation for the webinar, and it looks like Tina's answering that question. But incoming first year students, the process is a little bit later for them.
Yes, so that application will open on April 1st. The priority deadline is June 1st. You don't have to worry about selection times. You receive your room assignment on July 15th.
Lovely. Resources for third and fourth year students that decide that or they have to live off campus. I think we have an answer for that this year, Nikki.
We do. So we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. I'll be back on this
Yes.
webinar in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about off-campus. We do have an off-campus housing website, and we do. That is part of why our selection process is so early for Claremont. Why we're trying to take care of it before spring break, because if you don't get housing or you get on the wait list, you have time to still go out in the community and search for an apartment. We have an off-campus website, housing website. If you go to housing.emory.edu, scroll all the way to the bottom on the very front page, you'll see a link to the off-campus housing website. So those are folks in the community. It could be a professor that has a carriage house, or it could be a large complex. So it's like it runs the gamut. And those are folks who are advertising with Emory. There are, of course, other properties in the community. I if you don't want to live on campus or you don't get an opportunity to live on campus, I recommend just going out and driving if you have a vehicle and have the ability, or ride the Emory shuttle and see where and kind of see like what is off of the stops, or what is close to campus, and drive around and look at it and write everything down first, and then go back and look up those websites, or look and see if they're on the off-campus website. That'll give you a better feel for how close it is. But we will definitely talk about questions to ask your landlords and all kinds of things like that on the 21st.
Yep. Had to have as successful a search as possible and looking for that off-campus housing. Thanks for that, Nikki. A question, can suites be co-ed?
Yes, they can. So if all members of the suite agree to it being co-ed, it can be co-ed. That is another reason why we have that must fill on the first night, because it gives that opportunity for folks who want to have co-ed suites to pick their housing, and then us to adjust anything that needs to be adjusted, so somebody isn't walking into a suite that's co-ed that they don't know that it's co-ed.
What are the bed sizes at Claremont? Some of the photos on the housing website look like a double size bed, and then others look like a twin size bed. So which is
Yes.
it?
That's a great question. It's both. So
Okay.
at URC and CRC, we have those all have full size beds, so or double beds. At the Claremont Tower, some of the beds are twin beds, so you'll want to look. We have what's called 1 bedroom full size or 3 bedroom full size rooms in Claremont Tower, and it'll say full size. And so that's telling you what size bed is in the room. If it doesn't say full size, then it has 2 twin beds.
Are rooms in each dorm for rising sophomores allocated to each selection window? Or is it really first come, first serve? And if you get a late selection time on 4-9, you don't have great options available from which to select.
Yeah, so if it is, this is always sort of a confusing thing to explain. So again, because we have must fill turned on at the beginning, if you're in a group of 4, you can pick that 4-person suite. If you're in a group of 2 and there's no more 2-person rooms left, you won't be able to pick a 4-person room. But then the next day, you'll be able to pick a two-person, 2 spaces in a 4-person suite, right? So that's what happens is those it's more open. But yeah, if you do have a very late slot on the second day of selection, there is not going to be as much left at that time. So, but we don't
But things do shift.
exactly, and that's what I was saying. Like we are making room changes off the wait list for folks, so you can be in a room and ask to be placed on a wait list for a different type of room, we'll release that as soon as the selection is over on that second day. We set that up and let you know about that. If you don't pick a room, you'll automatically be on the wait list. And we'll use your preferences that you put in. So we'll remind you to update those and make sure that reflects what you really want, where you really want to live. So we pretty much make changes for students, pull students off a wait list, have students decide that they're going to go abroad, and things like that, all the way up until August 1st. So after August 1st, we do tend to freeze everything, even if we have openings, just because we're in that process now of the RAs prepping the rooms and prepping key packets and things like that, and making sure that your name actually matches where you're supposed to go. So gives us that 2 week period to fix that. But prior to August 1st, we have lots of moves happening. Things will stay pretty quiet right after. So I would say don't expect to get moved on the 10th, 11th, 12th, right? But after school gets out in May, that's when we start having more openings. Students tell us that they're transferring, they're taking a leave of absence, they're going
Studying
abroad.
abroad. Yep.
So all of those things, and that's where the movement happens. And so I would say, after commencement, a couple days after commencement, that's when we really start to see moves from then until August.
One of the things that I've noticed in the 9 years that I've been at Emory, I served as an advisor for 7 of those years. And I had students who were always very concerned about their course selection and their schedules. And the thing that I always found really surprising about Emory is things truly do shift. And so, to your point earlier in the presentation, don't get too anxious because the chances of you getting what you need or what you want are not, it's not impossible. It's just people have new information and so they're acting on it, and that creates space for other students, which has always been a good thing. And I've helped tons of students graduate, and I think if there were any concerns about their schedules, they have long forgotten them by now. Um, Another question, if a rising third-year student plans to study abroad for spring semester, are they allowed out of their housing contract for the spring semester if they have Emory housing? Answer when I was an advisor used to be yes.
Yes. So
Mhm.
that is the benefit of living on campus, especially if you're planning
Study
um,
abroad.
to study abroad. If you are not enrolled at Emory, you can't live in Emory housing. So we let you out of your contract scot free. Um, your lease, your apartment complex off campus may not be as understanding about that. So, and then we also, when you come back, we, will work with you. So you are signing a full year agreement when you sign. Um, but if you are not going to be at Emory in spring semester, your college will let us know and we will go ahead and release you without any issue.
Great, okay. Just making sure that I've answered. Is there a deposit required when signing the housing application? I don't think we asked that one.
There is not.
Okay. Um,
I think, but that does remind me of something that I didn't say earlier. For third and fourth year students going through this process, if they are not sure if they want to live on campus or off campus, um, once they pick their room, they're committing to living on campus. There is a way to be released. It is more likely you will be released while we still have a wait list for rooms than later in the summer when we don't have as much of a wait list. And there is a cancellation fee that comes with that. So if they log in, they're not really interested in anything that's available. Maybe they, some third and fourth year students, they're like, I want a 2-person, 2-bedroom. That's all I want. I don't want anything else. Some people want to live on campus. They're open to a variety of different things. So if your student is like, I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-person apartment, I don't care whether it's on campus or off campus. When they log in, if that type of room is gone and they want to look off campus, don't pick a room. you can place yourself on the wait list for that, to be on that for later, if that's the only type you want. And if we offer you and you've already picked something off campus, you can say no, thank you. It won't cost you anything. But if you pick a room and then later tell us you want to move off campus, it's going to cost you a cancellation fee. And the later in the summer it is, the less likely it is that we're going to allow you out of your agreement.
Good to know. Did we answer the question about incoming first year students requesting their own bathroom?
So I would say, yeah, we did. We talked
Okay,
about
I thought
that,
we
like there
didn't.
are some suites, but if you need to have a private room with just your own bathroom and not shared with anyone, you definitely want to work with DAS on that because we do not have very many
You
of
did say
those.
that. Yep. And that's a great team over there too.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
We don't have any more open questions. Nikki, it looks like you answered you answered almost 20 questions.
Yay.
That's amazing. Is there anything else that we want to cover? Oh yeah, coming up next. So the 21st, we're going to be talking to Nikki again about her thoughts and her tips and tricks for getting the best off-campus housing options for your student. And then we're going to take a break and come back April 18th and talk about preparing for commencement and helping families get ready for that big, exciting weekend that takes place on campus. It is always so beautiful. And in the coming days, a recording of this webinar is going to be available on YouTube and on our family.emory.edu site. If you have any questions in the interim, feel free to email family@emory.edu and I will personally answer those questions and be glad to speak to you. Thanks again, Nikki. This was so helpful. And thank you in advance for the off-campus housing. I always wonder why we didn't do one on off-campus. So I'm really excited that we're doing this. And I think it's going to be really helpful for families. So I'm really glad that we're doing it. Thank you so much for being willing to answer those
Absolutely.
questions. And with that, I think we're done. I want to thank my technical advisor, Tina, who's always, answering questions and advancing slides and just making sure that people actually see and hear all that is happening. So thank you, Tina. Appreciate you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.